we got the deadly beef inside a small Swedish town. Shottaz versus DP Kid Nerd. Let's get into it. See what it's hitting for.
Two men in their 20s have been shot dead in Stockholm in an apparent gangland killing. Swedish police say they were sitting in a car in a suburb northwest of the capital where gangs have been fighting turf wars. It brings the number of dead in such attacks to 5 in the past week, 7 since the start of the year.
So when we think of gang warfare, we mainly think of America.
5 in a week, and it was only 7 in that year? So you telling me there was only 2 deaths so far, and then...
America, England, or maybe some third world country, but not Sweden. In this video, we will be going through a deadly war in the capital city of Sweden called Stockholm, which despite Sweden being a country of only 10 million, made Sweden have the highest gun deaths in the whole of Europe in 2018. Let's get into it. Okay, so like I said before, we are going inside the capital city of Sweden called Stockholm. More specifically, a small town inside Stockholm called Rinkeby, home of 2 of the most ruthless gangs in the country. Now, Sweden for quite a few decades now has had quite an open and relaxed policy towards asylum-seeking refugees. The country was quite notorious for letting residents of war-torn countries like Syria and Somalia claim asylum inside their country. And when refugees would come in, there were a few towns normally they would be sent to. One of these towns being Rinkeby. In fact, Sweden actually has the highest asylum immigration per capita in the whole of Europe. But despite Swedish open door policies, a lot of the Swedish people wasn't as accepting to the new arrivals, and far-right protests didn't make integration the easiest. Now Rinkeby is home to a massive Somali population who were escaping violent conflicts in their home country. But a lot of Somali people who moved to Rinkeby were struggling, and high unemployment rates and hard living was a common theme with the Somali immigrants who just moved in. So the kids of these immigrants had to get it in another way, with the other way mainly being drug dealing and robberies. But on the 22nd of July 2015, a robbery gone wrong led to one of the worst bouts of violence Europe has ever seen. 4 Somali boys from Rinkeby planned and executed a robbery on a currency exchange in a city called Tabi. They ran off with around $200,000 and the robbery was talk of the town. But not everybody was happy about this. The robbers who executed this left out a couple younger members from the robbery, despite the younger members being part of the planning for it. The reason why the younger members were missed out was due to a previous robbery where one of them let off an unnecessary shot, so they were seen as a liability. The same day, the youngest started demanding money from the robbery, but they were getting shut down. The person who was thought to be behind the robbery was a 19-year-old called Izzy. Hours after the robbery, he was shot dead, starting the feud. The next day, the whole town is shaken by the brutal murder, and Izzy's friends were not happy. So Izzy's friends arranged to meet with some of the younger members who was meant to be involved in the robbery at a petrol station, with the younger members thinking that they might be getting their cut from the robbery when they arrived. Instead, when they pulled up, 16 shots were let off onto the younger members, killing one 16-year-old and injuring the other, creating a big divide in the town between the younger and older Somali group of friends, with only 2 to 3 years separating them, with the older group who supported Izzy later calling themselves Shottaz, and the younger group calling themselves DP or Death Patrol. Now Rinkeby is a small town, real.
Oh, what? Like it. Let me just keep watching.
Small, with less than 20,000 people living there, and a lot of the Somali community already knew what was about to happen, with some of the kids even relocating quite fast after these 2 days of carnage. But for a while, it wasn't looking like a big issue inside the town, with only little spouts of arguments and fistfights, but no one was getting killed at this point. In Somali culture, there's something called blood money, where the families of the deceased get together with the families of the murderers and discuss to pay a price for the murder. The 2 families of the murdered got together, but couldn't agree on the blood money ritual, but they did plan to have both of the murdered to be buried next to each other to show some unity between the 2. But this piece was cut short on the 2nd of December 2016. A member of the Shottaz gang called Indiana was visited by his brother who was living abroad in university. Indiana and his brother were spending some time together before his brother had to go back to uni, so visited the local cafe to get some food. Out of nowhere, 2 masked gunmen from the Death Patrol ran into the cafe and started letting off shots. The 2 brothers brothers tried to escape, but got trapped inside the washing room, and both were shot to death. Despite the brother not even having any affiliations, just being on a quick break from uni, this caused outrage, and forced everyone from the small town of Rinkeby to pick one side, Shottaz or Death Patrol, and the beef starts to intensify. December 31st, the man is shot in his car that is linked to the Death Patrol gang. He's shot 4 times in his legs, but left with non-life-threatening injuries. Next day, another man from the Death Patrol side is shot. This time he dies, lying on a residential street with a shot to the head. At this point, police are fed up, and so are the Swedish nationals. And the far-right movement in the country starts to grow, with protests storming throughout the country, with Swedish nationals wanting immigration to stop inside their country. On the other side, the immigrant population of Rinkeby were also not happy. They believed they were being targeted by police, and were starting to be unjustly dealt with. Early in 2017, an alleged violent drug-related arrest near a metro station left the residents of Rinkeby to have enough, and large riots started storming throughout the city, which led to looting, arson, and even fights towards the police. 3 people were injured and 2 arrested. This came days after the former President Trump let off a speech towards a migrant crisis in Sweden, saying immigration is a big factor towards the violence which is taking over the country, and the country was starting to get split in half, with integration between Swedish nationals and migrants as bad as ever, with areas like Rinkeby even being called no-go zones from nationals and the press, and Islamophobia and racism on the way up. But this didn't slow down the beef in the area, and it was the 8th of January when the Death Patrol gang struck again, this time in a pizza shop, when Hamza Abdi, a member of the Shottaz gang, was shot twice in the head. The shooting was caught on surveillance, and the police was desperate to find the killer, but it was seeming like this would be another unsolved case for the Swedish police, until 2 young boys were caught doing a robbery 2 months after the killing, one of these boys being a 16-year-old called Shaki. After they were caught by the police, they raided Shaki's house, where they found the same gun and clothes which were used in the murder of Hamza Abdi the month previous. They also matched Shaki's body type to the body type of the shooters. Now, Swedish sentences and prisons are very light compared to the rest of the world. Sweden has quite a different type of prison system to most countries, and they focus more on changing and helping the prisoners instead of punishing them. Like, the prison rooms look like uni accommodations, and it actually works with Sweden having the lowest reoffending rate in the whole of Europe. So even despite Shaki committing a murder, he was only sentenced to 3 years in a youth care unit.
I'm gonna give my thoughts and opinions at the end. 3 years?
I'm not really sure how this really works, because it would only make sense that having such light sentences would make people not really.
Bro got 3 years. They caught the gun at his crib. They got him doing a robbery. Like, they got him mid doing. They caught him mid doing a robbery. They got the gun and the clothes that he used for the killing. They matched everything. Probably, you know what I mean, tried to track his phone and everything through it. Probably found his phone nearby or something like that. Like, he only got 3 years.
Care about committing crimes, but on the other hand, I guess if you focus more on helping and educating the criminals, who more time probably had a harsh background, they'll have new skills and a new outlet to come out on. But with Shaki, this wasn't the case. He wanted to get out, so Shaki was on day release when he went out to a shopping mall accompanied by 2 guards, but also in the shopping mall was 2 of Shaki's friends waiting for him. Once they spotted Shaki, the 2 boys started threatening the guards and then escaped with Shaki, and they were on the run for months. A nationwide manhunt was out to find them, and many members from the Death Patrol gang got raided, but there was no luck, until a basement outside Stockholm was raided, and 2 members of the Death Patrol and Shaki was all found and arrested, with Shaki being sent back to serve his sentence. Now, if you know your geography, you'll know that Sweden borders another country called Denmark, but unlike Sweden, Denmark hasn't really seen much gang violence. In fact, Denmark is rated the 3rd most peaceful country in the world, but on June the 25th, 2019, Denmark was subject to something that no one expected. So 3 members of the Shottaz gang arranged to meet a Norwegian musician to network and make some tracks together. So they took a 7-hour drive from Stockholm to the capital city of Denmark called Copenhagen to meet up with a musician. But what they didn't know was that the musician had actually led the 3 Shottaz members into a trap. Waiting for them in Denmark was 5 members of the Death Patrol gang who flew in there the night previous. When they arrived, the Death Patrol gang started firing into their car. The driver driver managed to get out and run behind a parking garage with a shot to his leg, but his 21-year-old brother-in-law and another member wasn't as lucky, both dying from the shooting. One of the Shottaz members even tried to get out the car and crawl out, but a member of the Death Patrol gang got out of his car, reloaded his AK-47 and let off another 14 shots point blank range. The killers then took a picture of the two lifeless bodies and posted it all over social media. 5 men were charged and sentenced for the murder, where they are serving life in a Norwegian prison. One man being 23-year-old Muhammad Ali. Recently it was decided that the killers would be deported back to Sweden to finish off their sentence, but news broke out that Muhammad is begging the court not to send him back to Sweden, saying that in a Swedish prison his life will be in danger. He even said he would rather be sent back to Somalia, which is where his parents are originally from, just showing how dangerous this war is. Now while all this violence and back-to-back killings were happening, a rapper from the Shottaz gang started to emerge, a kid called Yasin the Don, and he really blew up with one of his hit singles called Chicago. At the same time there was another Swedish rapper running up on the scene, a kid called Einar from the other side of Stockholm, who was blowing up on the Swedish charts, getting the most streams on Spotify in Sweden in 2019. But around the same time, Einar was still knees deep in the streets, being affiliated with a gang called the Varby Network. Now Yasin and Einar actually used to be cool, until Einar got into an argument with an affiliate of Yasin's gang, another big rapper in the city called Havel. After the argument, Yasin, Havel and Einar would make slight disses towards each other, until Havel invited Einar to an apartment to squash the beef. When Einar pulled up to the apartment, Havel and others kidnapped him, tying him up and holding him hostage in an apartment. During the kidnap, Havel stole his watch, his chains, and held him for a £100,000 ransom. The gang even forced Einar to wear female underwear, and took numerous pictures of him in embarrassing positions. Havel and his gang threatened that if Einar didn't pay the ransom money, that they would release the pictures. But Einar refused to pay, so the pictures were posted all over social media. At the same time, Swedish police were starting to crack down heavy on Stockholm gangs, and once the pictures got released, they wanted to make examples out of Yasin and Havel. Same time, Swedish police were working with other countries on a crackdown of an encrypted network called EncroChat, which was a network where normally criminals would discuss illegal activities on an untraceable server, until the server was hacked by international authorities in 2020. During this hack, Swedish authorities managed to track messages sent by Yasin on the plot to kidnap the rival rapper Einar. Yasin originally plotted to lure Einar to a recording studio where they would have captured him, but Havel beat him to it. Both Yasin and Havel were both arrested for the kidnapping, with Yasin sentenced to 10 months and Havel sentenced to 2 years. But the court wasn't happy and wanted longer sentences. But to do this, they needed Einar to testify against them at court. Several months later, Havel's little brother is shot and killed, and Einar was the #1 suspect for this, but they had no evidence against him. But regardless of this, the court was still persistent on getting Yasin and Havel's sentence increased, but Einar was still refusing to testify. So the police set up a false pickup from Einar's apartment, so he would have no choice but to go to court. That same night that decision was made, Einar was shot dead with 1 bullet to the head and 2 to the stomach. No one knows the exact motive for the killing, but generally people think that it's because Einar was about to testify on the kidnapping. The shooters released videos on Snapchat just before the murder, with masks and the same Glock that was used for the murder. After the shooting, the killers released another video playing one of Einar's songs in the background, with the caption 1-0, but still no one's been charged for the rapper's death. Yasin has since been released from prison for the kidnapping, but the feds still have him under investigation and could possibly re-arrest him for more serious charges to do with the kidnapping. He's also still a potential suspect for a murder on one of his own gang members that took place on New Year's Eve 2019. A 20-year-old Shottaz member called Vincent was shot dead in the back of a car in the early hours on New Year's Eve. In the car was 4 other Shottaz members, including Yasin. In the hours before, Snapchat footage shows Yasin and Vincent eating at a restaurant just moments before the murder. There was even footage of other members in the car giving Vincent a present. Police believe this was all recorded to try and cover up the Shottaz members' motives for the killing. Straight after the murder, Yasin booked the first morning flight to London, but was arrested shortly after. Evidence shows that the shot was fired inside the car, and once they detained Yasin, they also found gunpowder particles on his clothes. Police say a possible motive for the murder was that Vincent had been getting closer with another gang in the area, but for now, Yasin and other members have all been released due to lack of evidence. Anyway guys, I hope this gives everyone a bit of insight into what is going on in Sweden. I'll probably start doing more videos covering different countries, so drop in the comments what you want me to cover next.
Alright. Bro. So let's just talk about the Sweden's legal system and how it works, right? Like, I don't know. Basically, I understand the fact that you gotta like rehab the person, right? But at the same time, you gotta understand the person, right? If you don't really dig deep into this person's history, like priors of like criminal history and everything like that, and where the person from, like it just it's pointless, right? You obviously know this dude is from the Rinkeby, right? The small little town in Stockholm that holds 20,000 people. A lot of people are stuck in poverty, immigrants, and you know what I mean, starting from nothing, trying to build up, right? So you trying to tell them, hey, go to school, hey, this, that, and the third may not be the best absolute thing, right? Because only thing you're doing is just really teaching them how to stay out of here, right? That's basically what's happening. You're just teaching them how to stay out of here. You give the little 16-year-old 3 years for a murder. He comes out at 19, comes back to the block. Everyone's like, yeah, bro, you stood tall, this, that, and the third. He going back out to the block because he didn't come home with. The only thing he came home with was a high school diploma. He didn't come home with any certification telling them like you can go to a mechanic shop and start working. You can go here and start working, stuff like that. Like, so the only thing he's gonna do is just go home, say, "Hey, mom, I got it. I got my high school diploma. Mom's gonna put it on the wall. Like I told you, son, you can do it. Now, you know what I mean. Now it's time to work. You know what I mean. Time to do everything I taught you and everything like that. You know what I mean. I'm glad you're home, and your son's gonna go right back out and do the same thing that he was doing. Like, and not only he only got 3 years. It's like, bro, his ops were 19 at the time when he went in at 16. His ops is 21, 22 now. Like they still gonna be looking for him at the age of 19. Like it don't stop there. Like even for the person that said, yo, like that was in a Danish jail. He literally said, I'd rather go back to Somalia than send me back to Sweden. Like he would rather go back home. He'd rather go back to his home country that his parents left, deemed that was too unsafe for their family to grow up in and be nurtured and loved and feel like they had an opportunity of life. Like their parents left there for them to go somewhere else. And he's telling them, like, yo, just deport me back there. Like I don't want to go back to Sweden because of he's scared of what they can do and people looking for him and he's gonna get a lighter sentence. So by the time he gets to Sweden, they're gonna give him like 2 more years in jail and then tell him, oh, time served, and then he can get out. So it's like how do you get people interested in what they're trying to teach them? Is really just studying the area these kids are from. Like these kids may not, you know what I mean, have that strong, tough loving at home where their mom and dad are just telling them, hey, go to school, hey, go to work, and that's it. Where they need someone, you know what I mean, on the back of their neck telling them, you know what I mean, this is what you got to do if you want to be successful. This is what you got to do the way you're successful. The same way that the OGs on the block are in their ear telling them, hey, if you want to rank up, you want to get points on the board, if you want to make some money, this is what you got to do. And they telling them every single day, 25/7, 25/8, like, you got to be the same thing. Like these police officers, these COs, you know what I mean, correctional officers in the jail system, they got to be the same way on these people. You know what I mean? Like on the especially on these kids because that's what's really keeping these gangs alive is these kids. You know what I mean? These yeah, it's a long thing that you got to get deep into, but really you got to study where these kids are from, what area they're stuck in, what are the opportunities in this area for them to say I don't want to be in these streets, and how do you get them to be more interested in that than the streets? Like, you know what I mean? Because the number one thing of the streets for all these kids is not that they want to kill someone. That's the last thing someone wants to do is to kill someone. Like they want to make money. Like you can't not make money in this. Like you got like that's the number one thing these kids do to get into the streets is make money. But all the violence is coming from trying to make money. So you can't be a violent so you gotta guide these kids to whatever, you know what I mean, they see. You tell these kids, hey, you made $1,000 a week, you know what I mean, on the block. Let me teach you, you know what I mean, how you can make $1,500 a week fixing cars. You know what I mean? Washing cars. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, tell these kids that. And then that's how you start getting these kids to understand, like, oh, that may not be what I want to do. You know what I mean? The street life may not want to be able to do. I can, you know what I mean, wash cars, fix cars, you know what I mean, all types of stuff. You know what I mean, work a little, being a little or a plumber's assistant, electrician assistant, and be making 1,500 a week. You know what I mean, under the table or on the books, paying taxes with it too, and you know what I mean, and still be able to get that nice little gold day, that nice Rolex and all that stuff that you see all these rappers and you know what I mean, the local hood guy got. You know what I mean? But you doing it the legal way. You coming home to Mob Dukes and Mob Dukes is thinking, oh, I'm worried about to get the cops, you know what I mean, booting the door off. But really you know what I mean, you clocking in, you going to work, and if you any of your peoples or your old friends or anything like that say, oh, that's bro, you bogus, bro, you're not cool because of that, you got a job, like those ain't really your friends. You feel what I'm saying? So it it's a long line, you know what I mean, in between the system. Like you gotta really study the area that these crime groups are in, understand what opportunity are in these areas and what these kids can do. Like you can throw, like I get it, yeah, I mean they got free schooling, they got free healthcare, they got all these free things and stuff. But if you not understanding what actually goes down in this area, the job opportunities in this area, you know what I mean? Like coming from that small town that's 20,000 people or such, like there most of those places in that small town are probably not like name brand places. They probably got a few name brand places, but every other store in the area is probably mom and pop shops. So you telling these kids to go work, they try to go find, you know what I mean, a mom and pop shop, like, hey, I'll sweep floors, I'll do this, I'll do that. And mom and pop shops telling them we barely can afford to keep rent. We're pulling from our savings to keep this spot open. You know what I mean? So it's just hard. So you really gotta guard these kids and understand the area these kids are and where you're placing them back into. And then hopefully you get a different answer. Hopefully you don't. I mean, not hopefully you don't. I mean, hopefully you get a different answer. Maybe you don't, but at least you gave them opportunity. At least you told them and gave them a certificate saying that, hey, if you want to get out these streets, go to a mechanic shop, go to plumber, go to electrician, go to these spots, go to the town that you're working and say, hey, you know what I mean, I'd love to work for the town when it's snowing outside. I got my license. I could, yeah, you know I mean, drive the little snow buggy, whatever. Things like things like that. You go to, you know what I mean? It's just you gotta guide these kids to somewhere where they can see the money that they were seeing in the streets without the violence. And if you can't guide them that way, then it's just gonna be pointless because they're not gonna follow. So, but shout out to Kid Nerd. Yeah, I mean, fire video. Thank you for speaking in English. That makes it, you know what I mean, easier for me to understand. I like I'll read subtitles, but depending on how long the video is, yeah, you know what I mean. I'm not trying to sit here all day and try to break down every single sentence that was said. So, but I appreciate you. Thank you for the video, man. But yeah, it's crazy in Sweden, man. It's crazy.